Listen, there are a lot of podcasts about the black church in the vein of Larry Reed and King Jives.
Yikes.
But if you're looking for a podcast about the black church that's thoughtful, informative, substantive, stimulating, then you need to subscribe to Black Church Chats. That's right. I need you to hit that subscribe button and then also hit the notification bell so that you'll know every time we go live. All right, on to the show. What's up, family? What's going on? What's going on? Happy Tuesday to you. I pray that you and yours are well. I see you already in the comment section, lighting it up. I see my brother Rick Barboa. Hello, salute to you. I see my aunties Melissa and Millicent. I see Sean Jackson. Sean, by the way, I made you a moderator. So you and Rick, I think, are the two moderators here right now. So help me hold it down. Steve from New York, salute to you, my brother. Gospel Philomath, as always. Good evening to you as well. Boy, this has been a day, y'all. This has been a day. So all glory goes to God. I'm alive and I'm safe after getting in a car accident earlier. That's right. I got in a car accident on the 101 earlier. And I'm still in one piece. The car is still drivable. And on top of that, I've been struggling with the migraine all day. And I'm still struggling with a low-grade migraine. You know what I see it as? Warfare. I see it as spiritual warfare, because I'm going to talk to you today about not just about Phillip Anthony Mitchell's comments, but I'm going to talk to you today about the enduring legacy of white supremacist, quote unquote, Christianity. Okay. I'm going to talk to you about how a counterfeit version of Christianity, a Christianity that Frederick Douglass identified as the Christianity of this land. I'm going to talk to you about how that type of Christianity has been alive and well in this country since its inception, and it endures today. And I really honestly believe that I've dealt with a high level of spiritual warfare leading up to this particular broadcast, because powers and principalities don't want white supremacist, white nationalist, segregationist, slave-owning, quote-unquote, Christianity to be touched. They want that type of Christianity to endure and prevail. But let me finish saying what's up to y'all. Unknown disciple of Christ, good to see you. Melody's child, my sis, God bless you. God bless you. My brother, Pastor Daryl Brown in Florida, good to see you. If you guys are anywhere near Jacksonville, Florida, go see my brother Daryl Brown, and I guarantee you will be blessed. Mark, Pastor Mark, good to see you. Andre, Pastor Andre, good to see you. Doc, you need to take that Cowboys jersey off your profile picture, man. You are desecrating your profile picture. My friend, my brother, and one of our deacons here at New Congregational Missionary Baptist Church, Marcus Champion, Deacon Marcus Champion, good to see you. Marlon Richardson, grace and peace to you as well. To all that are watching everywhere, even the lurkers, I know I got people lurking, mad, angry. They don't want me to talk about this, but I'm gonna talk about it anyway, because it needs to be talked about. I am going to address Phillip Anthony Mitchell's comments. I'm gonna talk to you about my thoughts, my feelings. I pray that you understand. I see Sister Michelle Turner, who's another mod that's joined the crew. Hey, Michelle, good to see you. God bless you. Thank you. I hope that you understand that I am attacking an ideology. I'm not attacking a man. I am attacking a skewed and insufficient view of history. I'm not attacking a man. I understand that talking about Phillip Anthony Mitchell brings blowback, pushback, even within my own sort of theological apologetic community. I recognize that a lot of my friends and brothers that I do apologetics with, a lot of those that are theologically aligned with me. You love Phillip Anthony Mitchell. I realize that. So I realize that I'm kind of walking on eggshells, even within my own theological apologetic community. But I want you to hear me. I want you to hear my heart. I don't dislike, hate Phillip Anthony Mitchell. I'm not jealous of Phillip Anthony Mitchell. As a matter of fact, this is my first time really talking about Phillip Anthony Mitchell outside of the broadcast I did with Damon, where we addressed his comments about the white cop and black kids being killed and brutalized by white cops. Other than that, I don't really talk about Phillip Anthony Mitchell. I don't really address his ministry. This is really my first time doing it on this platform, on this show. And it's only right, because this show is called Black Church Chats, by the way. I'm your host, Pastor Isaiah. And if you have a major celebrity pastor making very public statements about the Black church, it's only right that we discuss that here. It only makes sense. We're called Black Church Chats. We discuss issues pertaining to the Black church. And so when a voice as prominent as his makes a statement such as that, you got to address it. So do me a favor, like, share, subscribe. If you haven't subscribed yet, I need you to do that now. Again, I want you guys praying for me. Like I said, I've been struggling with. I see my mom number two. Hey, mom number two. I've been struggling with a migraine all day. So pray for me, because I'm a little bit discombobulated, out of sorts. But this is an important conversation, and it's an important moment. And I want to step back. And I want to approach this conversation from sort of a wide lens angle, because I think that we have to first consider the context in which these statements were made. And I'm going to play the statements. I'm going to play some other clips that I think are apropos, but let's step back and let's consider the context. And in order to understand the magnitude of the context, the ramifications of the context, we have to have a little bit of a history lesson. If you don't like history, you're not going to like this podcast. But in order to really kind of wrap our minds around the significance and the importance, the context in which these statements come, you have to kind of pan out, and you actually have to go back to the colonial period. As a matter of fact, there are what I consider to be watershed moments or watershed events which highlighted the difference between white supremacist Christianity, Christianity of this land, slave-owning Christianity, segregationist Christianity, and the Christianity of Christ, biblical Christianity, actual Christianity. I identified some specific events and moments that we can kind of point to and say, aha, major rift, seismic shift. This is a moment, this is an event that is clarifying and helping us to understand kind of what's what as it pertains to white supremacist, quote unquote, Christianity that's still alive and well, and actual Christianity. So let's back the bus up. And let's go to the 17th century North American British colonies, Virginia to be exact. 1667. You have lawmakers in Virginia they pass an act, and here's what the act is called. The act is called an act declaring that baptism of slaves doth not exempt from bondage. So the Virginia legislature in 1667, they passed this act, which essentially said, if an enslaved person is Christianized and they accept the gospel and they subsequently want to be baptized, that baptism does not confer upon them any rights, any freedom whatsoever. They can be baptized. However, that baptism doesn't then mean that they can be treated as anything more than chattel. This happens in 1667. Now, thankfully, y'all, and listen, I'm going to make it make sense. We're taking the historical boat. We're taking the historical route. We're going to get to modern day. We're going to get to these comments, but listen. So thankfully, our enslaved ancestors, they didn't fall for the okie doke. As a matter of fact, on plantations all across the antebellum South, they stole away. They had their own clandestine worship services. Most of our enslaved ancestors didn't abide by that version of Christianity that says we care about your soul, so your soul can be saved, but your body can remain chattel. We don't care about your body. We can still whip, brutalize, beat you, murder you, sell you away from your wife, sell you away from your husband. We can still do all that stuff. Your salvation has nothing to do with your body down here on this earth. Just frees your soul. Most of our enslaved ancestors said, nope, don't know what that is, but that's not Christianity. However, hear me. There were some, small amount, some enslaved Africans who, after this act was passed in 1667, after this act was passed, they became converts, particularly Anglican converts. They became converts through the efforts of these Anglican missionaries, because the whole point of this 1667 law was to really ease the fears of the slave owners. And after this law was passed, guess what? Now the missionary societies, Anglican missionary societies, can go in and try to attempt to Christianize the slaves, and the slave owners can rest assured that if an enslaved person wants to receive Christ, they will still remain chattel. Some Black people did convert to Christianity under this version, form, style of Christianity, where they could receive Christ but still be treated as less than human. And you know what, y'all? Before they were baptized, they were made to repeat a statement that affirmed that their Christianity, their salvation, their conversion meant nothing as it pertained to their freedom and their treatment as actual human beings. Those enslaved Africans who converted under this form and type of white supremacist Christianity, they were made to repeat this statement. Listen to this. They had to repeat this, or they had to affirm this, not repeat it. They had to affirm this. You declare in the presence of God and before this congregation that you do not ask for holy baptism out of any design to free yourself from the duty and obedience you owe to your master while you live, but merely for the good of your soul and to partake of the graces and blessings promised to the members of the Church of Jesus Christ. And that black body, that enslaved person standing in the baptism water or about to be administered baptism, this was they were Anglican, about to be administered baptism, they had to affirm this before they could actually be baptized. So you see the division. White supremacy, white supremacist Christianity. You can be a Christian, soul can be saved. Your body, you are still chattel. You are still slaves. You are still 3/5 of a human. You are still property. Overwhelming majority of enslaved people on plantations all throughout the antebellum South. No, we ain't rocking with that. We ain't rocking with that type of Christianity. We ain't going with it. We not, nope, we not, nope. However, small number of enslaved Africans did convert under this form of Christianity. So much so where they had to actually affirm that their Christianity afforded them no actual rights. They had to affirm that they were still chattel, even though their souls were slaves. Souls, even though their bodies were still enslaved. So you see that this is 17th century, 1667. That act, watershed moment, watershed event, which highlighted the difference between white supremacist Christianity and the Christianity of this land. White supremacists in Virginia said, this is the type of Christianity that we want in this colony. Majority of enslaved Africans said, nope. Some enslaved Africans said, yep, I'll take that. Now, I'm not going to demonize those enslaved Africans that went that direction. We don't know why they did it. That maybe they were under duress. Maybe they felt like doing that would bring them privileges. I'm not going to demonize them. I'm just highlighting the reality that you see in that event, in that moment, sort of a clarifying, two clarifying moves. Next watershed moment, and we're working our way there, so stick with me. Next watershed moment, 1787. 1787, you have Richard Allen, Absalom Jones, and the delegation at St. George's, the black delegation at St. George's Methodist Episcopal Church. You have them walk out of St. George's Methodist Episcopal Church because they're being mistreated, because essentially they are not being viewed as equal with their white brothers and sisters. They are not even allowed to pray in the same spaces white people are allowed to pray, even though they attend the same church. They are brothers and sisters within the same local faith community. And so they leave. 1787, they get up. They said, we out. A watershed moment. Watershed moment. The response. Richard Allen didn't walk into the planting of the first independent black church in the North without fierce opposition. It wasn't a cakewalk. They leave St. George's. They then create the Free African Society. And then Richard Allen plants the first independent black church in the North, what's commonly believed to be the first independent black church in the North, Mother Bethel AME Church. However, did you know that the white Methodists tried to take control and ownership of Mother Bethel after it was planted? They fought Richard Allen. They fought that black delegation. You would think they'd be like, okay, all right, we recognize y'all left because you were being mistreated. You were not being embraced as equals. Your white brothers and sisters, they were not loving you like they love themselves. And so, okay, we understand you got to go under those circumstances. Remember, this is the North. Methodists, supposedly anti-slavery, supposedly abolitionists. Now, all of a sudden, Richard Allen is in a struggle with white Methodists for the control of the black church that he planted. This ultimately ends up in the Philadelphia Supreme Court, in the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. in 1816, where the Pennsylvania Supreme Court ultimately has to step in and say, no, that's their church. That's their space for worship. And finally, in 1816, Richard Allen is able to, and the delegation, the congregation, able to assume full ownership of the faith community. So do you see why that's a watershed moment? Black delegation mistreated in a multi-ethnic space, not being treated as image bearers. So what do? They leave, rightfully. I hope we can all agree they should have left. I hope we can all agree, if you are not being treated as an image bearer, if you're not being treated as fully human within the faith community that you attend, you probably need to find a new faith community where they will affirm you and they will treat you like a human. So yeah, they left. They left. The white power structure says, no, we need to exercise paternalism over this and own this. They fight, and they ultimately win. But did you know, listen to me, did you know there were some Black Philadelphians that did not support Richard Allen? And they did not support the African Methodist Episcopal movement. They were opposed to what Richard Allen and the others were doing. And again, I don't want to demonize them. They had their reasons. Some of them were probably afraid of the backlash that the Black community in Philadelphia would receive by the powerful Methodist organization. I don't want to demonize them. I'm just trying to show you something. Independent Black church in the North starts. They have to fight off white Methodists who are trying to control them. You would think that all of the Black people in Philadelphia would say, yes, we support you. We are with you. Not the case. Didn't happen. So 2 watershed moments, and we're working our way. Stick with me. 2 watershed moments, 1667, 1787. Now let's get to slavery, emancipation, Reconstruction. So I'm lumping all of these together. Okay, we're talking about watershed moments and events. Okay, so I'm lumping all of these: slavery, emancipation, Reconstruction, lumping all of that together. So during slavery, you have white denominations fighting over the issue of slavery, fighting vehemently over the issue of slavery. Okay. And ultimately, their fight leads to schism. And so you have the Methodists in 1844. You have the creation of the Methodist Episcopal Church South because of slavery. So a denomination split. So again, you have some white Methodists who say, no, slavery is wrong. You have others, particularly Southern Methodists. They're like, no, slavery is okay. Split in the denomination. 1845, you have the Southern Baptist Convention. So you have Northern Baptists split away from the Southern over the issue of slavery. This is not a doctrinal issue. This is not that. No, let me back up. Ultimately, it is. Underlying the fight was doctrine and ultimately the doctrine of the Imago Dei. But they weren't. This isn't. You didn't have the North saying we deny the Trinity and the South saying no, the Trinity isn't essential. You didn't have the North saying we don't believe in salvation by faith alone, and the South saying no, we do believe in salvation by faith alone. No, slavery. Can we own people? Can we own people and treat people like chattel? And in 1861, you have the Presbyterian Church in the Confederate States of America. So the Methodists, the Baptists, Presbyterians, white denominations split over the issue of slavery. Okay. Now, what's happening in the black community? Overwhelmingly, black people, black preachers are abolitionists. Some are vocal, some silently share abolitionist sentiments. During this time, you have the creation of black denominations as well, right? Independent black denominations, AME Zion, CME. Well, AME and AME Zion come before, but you know, you have the creation of independent black denominations, but overwhelmingly, black people, the overwhelming majority, are abolitionists. They support the cause of abolitionism. They contribute north and south. However, there were some black people that opposed even the abolition of slavery. Can you believe that? Black people opposing the abolition of slavery? Read Jupiter Hammond was a poet. And listen, I don't want to demonize Jupiter Hammond, just like I don't want to demonize Phillip Anthony Mitchell, just like I don't want to demonize black conservatives. I don't want to demonize Jupiter Hammond. But Jupiter Hammond, as a black poet during slavery, wrote that this is essentially said this is better for us to be in this condition as slaves. Now, he wrote a lot of good things regarding, you know, the glorification of Christ Jesus, and you know, he wrote a lot of good things about doctrine and things of that nature. But Jupiter Hammond did absolutely support and argue for the endurance of chattel slavery. And not just that, you had in New Orleans, you had a group called the New Orleans Free People of Color. So hear this: New Orleans Free People of Color. Spring 1861. They opposed abolitionism. They wrote that the free colored population of Louisiana have no sympathy for abolitionism, no love for the North. This was an open letter from New Orleans Free People of Color. So you have some free black folks, some free Creoles who professed loyalty to the state of Louisiana, and they even offered militia service to the Confederacy, aligned with the 1st Louisiana Native Guard. So do you see? Watershed moment. Now, I can go on and on and on. Let's talk about emancipation. And let's talk about a man by the name of Isaiah T. Montgomery, a black man, lawmaker in Mississippi, who essentially sold the black population of Mississippi out by voting for poll taxes and literacy tests, effectively disenfranchising the black population in Mississippi for years as a result of his vote. Black lawmaker who essentially says, I am supporting the slaveocracy. I am supporting the system of chattel slavery, even though I have black skin. So we fast forward. We get to the civil rights movement, watershed event, civil rights movement. We all know about the civil rights movement. Okay. We all know how a lot of white evangelicals, even today, they're trying to rewrite the history of the civil rights movement. They're trying to cast the civil rights movement in a negative light. We understand what they're doing. This isn't new. This happened then. Martin Luther King had his detractors. J.H. Jackson couldn't stand Dr. Martin Luther King. There was also a black preacher hired by the FBI. He was a prominent black preacher. Lightfoot Solomon Michaud was his name. Hired by Hoover's FBI to speak against Dr. King, to lie about Dr. King. This is during the civil rights movement. So the government raises up a black preacher who's already prominent. Black people are listening to this guy at the time, empowers this guy, and uses this black preacher as a puppet to try to pour cold water on the civil rights movement. So you see, watershed moment. Black people simply want to be enfranchised. During the civil rights movement, black people want to vote. All right. Black people want to be treated as equals. You have white Christians opposing it. And yes, you even have black Christians, professing Christians, opposing it. The next watershed moment, and we're getting to it. All right. I know it's taking me a second, but this is important. This is important. Next watershed moment or events. Let's say events. The murders of unarmed black men, culminating in George Floyd. Now, he's not the last one to be murdered unjustly, but that murder and the subsequent response was extremely clarifying. Extremely clarifying as it pertains to the difference between white supremacist Christianity and actual Christianity. You have white professing Christians saying he deserved it. He was a junkie. He was an abuser. He was an ex-convict. White professing Christians telling black Christians grieving, he'd have just complied. And yes, just like with slavery, just like with the bottom falling out of Reconstruction, just like in 1667, just like Richard Allen's move to plant an independent black church in the North, there were black detractors, black folks joining in, saying, "Yeah, he deserved it. Oh, you guys shouldn't mourn this guy. He was a junkie. He was a rabble rouser. He was an abuser. He was a convict. He deserved it." And that led to the statement of social justice and the gospel with a bunch of signers, John MacArthur, Vadi Bakum, on and on and on and on. Again, what I'm pointing out to you are clarifying moments, watershed moments, events, which highlighted the difference between white supremacist Christianity and Christianity. And y'all, we are living in one of those moments today. The assassination of Charlie Kirk is a watershed moment where we are seeing various responses to this assassination. We are also seeing very blatant, overt white supremacy, very blatant, overt racism. We're seeing it. We're hearing it in real time. I can't tell you how many people I deleted from my Facebook page for their Dog whistles that weren't so subtle. Things like, oh, look at what we do. Charlie Kirk dies and we hold a prayer vigil. Look at what they do. George Floyd dies and they riot. That you don't think that you don't. What do you think is implied in that? They're savages. Never mind the fact that HBCUs around the country had to close because of the multiple bomb threats. But I digress. We are in a watershed moment where we are seeing clear distinction, clear separation. White supremacist, quote unquote, Christianity and actual Christianity is in conflict because of this event, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And you have to listen to the responses carefully. Listen to what people are saying. Now, the overwhelming majority of black people are saying, you know what? Political violence is wrong. Political violence is deplorable. We do not celebrate the murder of anybody. However, let's talk about his rhetoric. Okay. Overwhelmingly, black people are standing up saying, look, we can't sanitize this man's rhetoric and legacy. Right. But not every black person is joining that chorus and pointing out the very problematic things that Charlie Kirk said. And some of them are even going further to disparage and denigrate both blackness and the black church. And so now is where, and I know we're 40 minutes in, but now is where I have to talk about Phillip Anthony Mitchell, because context matters. This is a watershed moment that we're in right now. And how people respond to this highlights what type of Christianity they've embraced. Now, again, I'm not saying that Phillip Anthony Mitchell is a white supremacist. I'm not saying that Phillip Anthony Mitchell is a heretic. I'm not saying that Phillip Anthony Mitchell is unsaved. I'm not saying that Phillip Anthony Mitchell is a false teacher. But what I am saying is that in the same way that they claim that Christians can unconsciously and subconsciously imbibe Marxism or communism, right? That's a claim. Oh, they're Marxists. They just don't know it. They've embraced Marxism. They just don't know it. In the same way that they claim that we can do that unconsciously, subconsciously, implicitly, black people and white people can embrace white supremacist, segregationist, slave master Christianity implicitly, subconsciously, unconsciously. Because listen, I've never heard Phillip Anthony Mitchell say anything about his church being black, being a black church. Never. Why now? Why does he feel the need now? As we're in this watershed moment, we're seeing the fault lines. Right? We are seeing the dividing lines. Why now does he feel the need to stand before his congregation and say, this is not a black church? That doesn't exist here. Why now? He's been viral for years. Because what is he doing? He's responding to this watershed moment. You have the overwhelming majority of black Christians, black churches standing up and saying, hey, we're not celebrating his death. And by the way, that's fake news. That's fake news. Oh, people are celebrating his death. Jamal Harrison Bryant is celebrating his death. Howard John Wesley. So now I have my disagreements with Howard John Wesley and Jamal Harrison Bryant. I disagree with them on a lot. They're not celebrating his death. They made it clear that political violence is wrong. They made it clear that Charlie Kirk should still be alive and he did not deserve to be murdered. But what they went on to do was to talk about his statements, his problematic, racist, divisive statements. They did that, and a lot of black Christians feel the exact same way. A lot of black Christians. And so people are taking to Twitter. People are taking to Facebook. I'm talking about black Christians saying, hey, we're not in support of his murder, but we really have an issue with the things he said. As black Christians overwhelmingly and black churches overwhelmingly are standing up, trying to bring attention to the comments and statements made by Charlie Kirk that were racist, wrong, divisive. Now, Phillip Anthony Mitchell wants to step up and say, this is not a black church. Why? Why now? I want to play the clip. I want to play the clip. And then I want to respond to the clip. So let me play the clip. Here's what he said.
I want to say something and it might sound a little inappropriate, but I just want to remind everybody this is not a black church. Don't exist here.
Okay. So if I can talk, I doubt that this will reach Phillip Anthony Mitchell. I doubt that it will. But if it does, Pastor Mitchell, can I talk to you? Can we talk? What do you know about the history and the legacy of the black church? Do you know why the black church exists? Have you taken time to research and study what you're ultimately saying you are not? Pastor Mitchell, I at one point was an opponent of the idea of the black church as well. I grew up in the black church, but at one point I embraced a theology that moved me hard to the right. And I'm talking about politically, okay, as well as theologically. And I'm still pretty orthodox, pretty conservative theologically. But at one point in my journey, I actually railed against the black church. I did. I thought the black church was anti-intellectual, emotional, and I was actually offended even by the term black church. I was there. And then somebody reached out to me and asked me a question. They asked, Isaiah, what do you know about the black church? My response initially was, what do you mean? I grew up in the black church. I know everything about the black church. I born in its pews. What are you talking about? Raised up in the black church all my life. A gentle rebuke came. Isaiah, just because you were raised in the black church, born in the pews, doesn't mean that you know and understand the history and legacy of the black church. Somebody can work at McDonald's for 40 years and still not know the impetus behind the creation of the business, not know anything about Dick or Maurice or their motivations. And you know what I did, Pastor Mitchell? You know what I did? Even though at that point I was still hostile, I was still in my cage stage. You know what I did? I said, you know what? You're right. I've never really studied and researched the legacy and the history of the Black church. And so I set out to do that. He recommended me a couple of books, and I read those books. And as I read those books, Pastor Mitchell, I realized that the legacy and the history of the Black church is an amazing apologetic for the existence of the Christian God. I realized that the story of the Black church is a story that has God's hand, God's grace, God's plan all over it. And I realized that the legacy and the history of Black church, that this institution commonly referred to as the Black church, hasn't just been a blessing to Black people, but it's really been a blessing for all people, to all people. And I realized so many people don't know about this. They don't. You came up under well, I'm not gonna say you came up under him, but you attended the Bible college, I think Valor Bible College, Rob Parsley. Pastor Mitchell, did Rob Parsley ever tell you anything about the history and legacy of the Black church? Did you learn in any of your studies about the history and legacy of the Black church? I'm pretty sure you didn't, because you can go to major seminaries, particularly conservative seminaries, and not hear anything, not learn anything. You know what happens? They'll go from the first century right to the Reformation in Europe. And then they'll go from the Reformation in Europe to John and Charles Wesley and George Whitefield. And then they'll go from John and Charles Wesley and George Whitefield to Billy Graham. I want to ask you, Pastor Mitchell, is it possible that you've been influenced by Parsley's or Valor's understanding of the Black church rather than actual exploration and study of the Black church? Can I remind you of something Pastor Parsley said that sounds similar to what you said on Sunday?
We need to stop drawing such distinction, especially in the church, between groups of people, especially based on the pigmentation of one's skin. We are all God's people, every single one of us, and we can all be changed from glory into glory. I looked around this room. We got a few of our leaders here today. We're so thankful to see them. But I looked around this room and I counted 52 Caucasian people and I counted 55 people of color. That's pretty well balanced for a church in the United States of America. Because I'm going to make a statement for you. If all you're going to do is support one race, then you're going to leave the church out. You're going to have Black churches and Asian churches and Hispanic churches and white churches. And I can tell you, none of them God's church. We all together are God's church. And I'm going to take this Bible to.
None of them God's church. I just want to focus on that particular statement. None of them God's church. Black churches, Asian churches, Hispanic churches. None of them God's church. Now, if you're familiar with my platform, then you know that I believe that the universal church, talking about the Big C church, is a body. A body. And when you look at a human body, what do you discover about a human body? What do you discover? You discover that the human body is one unit, but it's made up of what? Different parts, diverse parts. One body, different parts. You have your arm, you have your elbow, you have your kneecap, you have your ankle, you have your toe, you have your shin. It's one body, but there's what? Diversity within the one body. Paul uses this imagery on purpose. Body of Christ. One unit, but there's diversity within this one unit. And when we use terms like the Black church, we're not negating the existence of the body. We're not saying that it is not one body. What we're saying is this is a segment. This is a part of God's universal body. And it exists for a specific reason. Have you studied that reason, Pastor Mitchell? Have you taken the time to drill down to understand the legacy history? Now, you didn't just say that that this is not a Black church. You go on to say, let me add it.
Don't exist here. This is not a Black church. Don't exist here. But I just want to remind everyone.
Now, if you don't want to be identified with the Black church tradition, you don't. That's your prerogative. But here's why it's problematic to me. Because from what I understand, the overwhelming majority of your parishioners are Black. Overwhelming majority. Sure, you may have white faces here, there, Hispanic faces here, there, and praise God for that. But the overwhelming majority are Black. From what I understand, your leadership team's predominantly Black. Okay. You are in Atlanta, which is like the Black Mecca. Okay. And what it sounds like when you say there is no Black church, that doesn't exist here. What it sounds like, and I think you've affirmed this, Pastor Mitchell, what it sounds like is we are not a Black church for two reasons. Number one, because we're trying to be multicultural. And number two, because we are colorblind. We are a colorblind church. And I think that that's extremely problematic. You are pastoring Black people. Overwhelmingly. Doesn't mean that you're only pastoring Black people, but you are overwhelmingly pastoring Black people. And I hope you would agree, Pastor Mitchell, that God adds to the church. One plants, one waters, but God gives the increase. We are not responsible for who attends our church. We do the work, we labor, right? But God, I hope we can agree that God sends who he wills to his church. Okay. So that would mean that where you pastor and who you pastor is not coincidental. Not coincidental. You are pastoring Black bodies overwhelmingly. And that is by design. Did God call you to 2819? Did God call those people to 2819? Absolutely. To look out at the mass of people that you pastor and to say that you don't see color is potentially harmful to the very people that God called you to pastor and shepherd and lead. And here's how. If you have 15 Labradors, okay, and 3 of them happen to be Black Labradors, and you're about to go on vacation, so you need a dog sitter, and I volunteered to dog sit your 15 Labradors. and you say to me, hey, thank you for stepping in and overseeing while I'm gone. Appreciate you. So here's the rundown. I have 15 Labradors, and and 3 of the 15 Labradors are black Labradors. And those black Labradors, particularly, they have dietary restrictions. Okay. Those black Labradors, particularly, they have grooming restrictions and needs. Those black Labradors, like, there's particular ways that you have to care for those black Labradors, because while they're all Labradors, those black Labradors are unique in certain ways. What would you say if I responded to you by saying, "Oh, I don't see black. I don't. All I see are dogs. I just see dogs." You would look at me and you say, oh, "Wait, okay. I'm glad that you see dogs, but you do understand that 3 of the dogs are black Labradors, and they have unique needs. They have there's specific instruction on how to care for these specifically." I said, "Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, they're dogs, right? So I'll just care for them as dogs. Why does it matter that they're black Labradors?" That is colorblindness, essentially. Now, of course, all analogies break down. But what I'm essentially saying, when I say to you, "Oh, I only see dogs," what I'm saying to you is the blackness of those Labradors is just incidental. It doesn't really matter. They're dogs. So, and essentially what I'm saying to you is I don't see those dogs as being unique and as needing anything different from. We can get into the conversation around race being a social construct and all that stuff. We can talk about it. We can talk about the label, the designation, where blackness came from as opposed to where whiteness came from. We can talk about all of that. And I've talked about this. I've talked about that on this show, on this broadcast. I've talked about those distinctions, those divisions. But what I'm pleading with you to understand this fundamentally. When you say this doesn't exist here, blackness doesn't exist here, essentially what you're saying is who you are is irrelevant. We don't see that. We don't see you. We don't see your uniqueness. And that is going to impact the way you care for them. It is. If you don't see blackness, then you don't see black issues. If you don't see blackness, then you don't see things that are unique to the black plight in this country. You don't see the specificities of black existence. You don't see that. You just see an amorphous group. What if you were with me and we were in the mountains and we stepped outside and you said, "Look at all the beautiful trees. Look at the colors of the trees. They're so beautiful. Man, isn't God good? Look at how beautifully he arrayed the forest and how beautiful the trees are, each different, each beautiful." And I responded to you by saying, "Oh, I don't see color. I just see trees. They're just trees out there." Doesn't that diminish God's handiwork, the beauty of his diverse creation? No, see black and see Hispanic and see them. In Revelation 7, guess what? All nations, tribes, tongue. John, the Revelator, sees them. He sees them. They're all there. He doesn't look up and say, "Oh, I just see people worshiping." All nations, tribes, and tongues. See them. Now, I want to continue with the state. I want to continue with it. I want to continue with what Phillip Anthony Mitchell says.
This is not a black church. Don't exist here. This is the church of Jesus Christ. And we thank God for this mixture of melanin, white, black, and brown, because there is no black church here. It is only the brothers and sisters of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Anybody? This is what heaven is going to look like.
Not exactly. I talked about this on a broadcast. I think my last broadcast, when I talked about the black church in the age of multicultural church planting. Pastor Mitchell, if you're saying this is what heaven looks like from a purely like optical sense, like, okay, there are different nationalities worshiping together, and so what we see with our eyes reflects what we'll see with our eyes when we get to heaven, and it's just purely based on like optics. Okay, all right, okay, all right, maybe that's what heaven looks like. But you're forgetting that in heaven there is no racism. In heaven there is no ethnic partiality. I guarantee some of that is there at 2819 Church. In the hearts of some of your people, I guarantee that's there. I guarantee there's racism in the hearts of some of your people. I guarantee there's ethnic partiality in the hearts of some of your people. I guarantee that some of your people secretly do not like the black people that they're sitting beside. And just because they're sitting beside them doesn't mean that they embrace them as equals. Remember the example that I gave at the beginning of this discussion. Richard Allen is sitting at St. George's Methodist Episcopal Church, a multi-ethnic church, blacks and whites worshiping together. But it wasn't like heaven. You want to know why it wasn't like heaven? Because some people in the pews didn't see other people in the pews as equals. Looking out into your audience and saying, this is what heaven looks like, from a purely optical sense, maybe, but I highly doubt it, because your congregation is overwhelmingly predominantly black. So maybe heaven will be overwhelmingly predominantly black. Maybe. Praise God if it is, but I don't know. But from a sociological sense, from a heart level sense, it's not what heaven looks like, because there's still racism there. And that leads me back to my first question to you, Pastor Mitchell. How much do you know about the history and legacy of the black church and why it exists in the first place? And do you know that you are contributing to implicit and explicit racism by perpetuating notions of colorblindness? That does not help. Because what you're saying to the racist is that, listen, you don't have to grapple with the actual reality of who's sitting beside you and how you feel about them. You can just pretend like who they are doesn't even really exist. Now, I'm gonna.
And I want you to love each other deeply, no matter the color of your skin. For we will never make skin color an idol, nor is it a god. Your skin is not an idol.
So notice the connection there. We are not a black church. Doesn't exist to us. Doesn't exist here. Then there's a beeline to, we don't idolize skin color. Your skin color is not an idol. That implies, I'm not saying that he's saying this explicitly, but it implies that if you affirm the existence of the black church And if you affirm the reality that black churches are here, and if you consciously pastor a black church, then somehow that's ethnic idolatry. As a matter of fact, somebody will listen to this broadcast, and I get this all the time. I get this all the time. You are an ethnic idolater. I get it all the time from the right, from black conservatives and non-black conservatives. As a matter of fact, somebody in here in the comment section just recently said I'm a false teacher. I get that all the time. But hear me. Black dignity looks like ethnic idolatry to a white supremacist. Black dignity looks like ethnic idolatry to a racist. How do you apply what the psalmist said? We are fearfully and wonderfully made. How do you live out that reality? What does it mean to really embrace this reality that we, as God's creation, red and yellow, black and white, what does that mean that we have been fearfully and wonderfully made? And if you really believe that, how do you live that out in the world? You know what it sounds like? It sounds like dignity in who you are, dignity in your in how God has uniquely and beautifully shaped you, dignity in your history and the legacy you've inherited, dignity. But white supremacy always confuses dignity for idolatry. Affirming the existence of the black church means you're an ethnic idolater. Advocating for the flourishing of the black church means that you're an idolater, ethnic idolater. It's frustrating because it's such like elementary thinking. Now, I'm going to continue playing this. Because there's something that I need to highlight before we go. All right, check this out.
Nor is it a God. And I want us to love one another deeply. No matter what we look like.
So, hey man, we should love one another deeply, no matter what we look like, but we'll never get there if we ignore what's evident. If we treat what's if we take a major component of somebody's identity and treat it as if it doesn't exist, then you know what we create? Superficial unity. Superficial unity is when you get people together and look, I really don't care much about who you really are. Right? But I love you though. That's superficial unity. And by the way, Pastor Mitchell, listen, I hear you. You're calling out ethnic idolatry. You're calling out idolizing skin color. I hear you. But remember, you went to Valor. It's Rod Parsley's Bible College. And can I remind you of what Rod Parsley said in the wake of the Charlie Kirk assassination? Can I remind you?
Believe that the birthright of every single American is freedom. Okay, you're not sure, see? Your birthright as an American is freedom. My family fought and died for it. My family served in the military for it. I have preached for it. Your freedoms are secured. And for you America haters, if I don't care for Burger King, I'll just go to McDonald's. America is not perfect, but it's the best nation on the face of God's earth for people who want to live free, or else why are they all trying to get here?
Is it possible that professing Christians can idolize America? Is it possible that nationalism can become idolatrous? While you're pointing out and rebuking ethnic idolatry and black idolatry, we got a whole lot of professing Christians who are more allied with the American government than they are the kingdom of God. You have a whole lot of professing Christians that will die for America before they die for the kingdom. You have a whole bunch of professing Christians that put the American flag above the bloodstained banner. You have a whole bunch of professing Christians that idolize this land. Why not? Why not call that out? Why not say that it's idolatrous to suggest that if you hate America, you leave? That's what partially implied. If I don't like Burger King, I go to McDonald's. Essentially, he's saying if you don't like it here, get out. Where in the Bible am I commanded to love America? Where is the biblical instruction to proclaim and believe that America is the greatest nation on earth? That to us feels like the same type of Christianity that can overlook how actual people are being treated, how actual image bearers are being treated, while simultaneously being aligned with the will and the whims of a human nation. More aligned with a human nation and a human government, than with the people within the government that are being abused, traumatized, mistreated. Again, y'all, listen, this is why I started, because this isn't new. I am going to wag my finger at a population, a group of people that simply just want to be dignified while not saying nothing about a mass of professing Christians that put country above Christ, that put flag above Bible. A mass number of Christians that believe that the Republican Party is somehow God's sanctified party. And if you aren't a Republican, then you somehow aren't saved. So, you know, I know that this broadcast is going to put me in the crosshairs of Phillip Mitchell supporters. I know. I'm already despised by the Vadi Bakum types. Honestly, I consider their anathemas to be a badge of honor. If I'm not being anathematized by, by white supremacist Christians, then there's something horribly wrong. And so I'm already in their crosshairs. Listen, y'all, this platform is small. It's growing, but it's small. I was on YouTube the other day, and y'all, let me just say, there are people that have platforms much bigger than mine talking about me. Talking about little old Isaiah. I'm talking about people are actually clipping Facebook posts that I've made and talking about me. So I know, listen, I'm already in their crosshairs. That's fine. I know that this will become fodder for segregationist Christians, white supremacist Christians all the world over. I get that. However, we are living in a watershed moment. And this moment, just like the other watershed moments we talked about beginning of this broadcast, this moment is clarifying for us the difference between what Frederick Douglass called the Christianity of this land and what he called the Christianity of Christ. This is a watershed moment that's helping us to identify and see. Oh, now, again, I'm not anathematizing Phillip Mitchell. I'm not saying that he's a false teacher. I'm not saying that he's any of those things. But what I am saying is that he has embraced elements, notions, portions of white supremacist Christianity. And that version of Christianity does harm to people of color. That version of Christianity excludes, marginalizes, attempts to shut up, attempts to other people of color. And for all of those saying, well, how can he do that as a black man? He's a black man. That's why I had to give a history lesson. There have always been black people that fight against and oppose the freedom struggle, from abolitionism all the way into modern day. And the goal is to detract, is to shut up, is to silence, is to marginalize. That is always the goal. And black people have always aided in that endeavor. White supremacy has always had black allies and black friends. Always. Always. And it continues today. But channels like this and other channels exist to wave the flag and say, hey, just because you live in this land doesn't mean that you have to embrace the Christianity of this land. And even Phillip Anthony Mitchell, as popular and prominent as he is, can be called out for, yes, white supremacist segregationist undertones, and even in some cases overtones. Doesn't mean that I'm labeling him. Listen, there are some that I like Joel Webbin. To me, I don't believe Joel Webbin is a brother in Christ. Okay, there are some that I'll come out explicitly say, no. I'm not going there with Phillip Anthony Mitchell. What I will say, though, is Bull Connor was a Sunday school teacher. He taught Sunday school on Sunday morning and worked for the marginalization and disenfranchisement of black folks Sunday evening and Monday through Saturday. And he had help from black people. And you can be a professing Christian who embraces that brand, that style of Christianity, even unconsciously. And that's when it's the most insidious, because yes, even unconsciously, you can imbibe and embrace that form and that style of Christianity. And I'm just here, listen, I'm just here to point my finger at it, to call it out and say that's what it is. Now, look, Phillip Anthony Mitchell, huge social media platform following, thousands of people at his church. This is not a call to abandon 2819. If you're a member of 2819. However, this is a call to be sober-minded, to be vigilant, to listen carefully, to be watchful. Yes, black people can be racially traumatized in black spaces. That's actually a thing that can happen. Be vigilant, be watchful. Most of the time, he doesn't wade into these waters. Again, remember, I talked about context. Why is he saying this stuff now? Why now is he coming out? We are not a black church. Context. He's trying to distinguish himself and his church from black churches, saying, no, a lot of what Charlie Kirk had to say was wrong, racist, unhelpful, divisive, unbiblical, unwise. And so in this watershed moment, he is intentionally separating himself and saying, no, we're not that. We're not with them. We're not over there. As a matter of fact, all of that's ethnic idolatry. And so again, you see this separating of ways, where the overwhelming majority of black people saying, no, we got to call out the white supremacy. And some black people are saying, shut up. As a matter of fact, you're an ethnic idolater. And we aren't. And this is as old as this country is. So listen, I am planning on doing a broadcast on this channel where I differentiate and distinguish between white supremacist Christianity. You can call it slave master Christianity. You can call it segregationist Christianity. Frederick Douglass called it the Christianity of this land. I'm actually going to do a deep dive. And I think in times like this, we need discussions like this, because this is white supremacist Christianity is a false Christianity. It's a false gospel. There is no salvation in white supremacist segregationist Christianity. Okay. And so this is a moment where we need to recognize, right, that this is pervasive, and we can actually succumb to it unconsciously, unknowingly, and we have to be aware. And so here at this channel, we're gonna call it out. We're gonna turn the light on, and so I will be talking about, this is why you need to subscribe, how we can identify segregationist Christianity in the 21st century. How to know if you have embraced it. I'm going to talk about that. And why the black church is still a refuge. Still a refuge. See, stuff like this, you don't have to worry about. When you are a black person attending a consciously black church, you don't have to worry about them saying, we do not see you. Shout out to Miss 4th of July with the very first super chat. Love you. Appreciate you. Thank you so much, Miss 4th of July. Thank you. $20. Thank you. Thank you for coming through. Appreciate you. Uh-oh, hold on. So listen. Stay tuned because I'm gonna talk about how to identify the Christianity of this land. I'm also going to talk about I received an inbox on Facebook inbox from a very vocal MAGA pastor. He's actually a rising star within the MAGA movement. He went off on me. Went off on me in my inbox. Went off. I ended up sharing that message on Facebook, but I'm going to do a podcast on it. Because I think in times like we're in a watershed moment. So you need to be prepared for these same kind of conversations. You need to be prepared, particularly if you attend the black church, if you're a pastor of a black church, you need to be prepared for these same kind of assaults and attacks. And so I am going to read the contents of that inbox. I'm going to respond to it. This is going to be a non-segregationist, white supremacist Christianity platform, because the black church has always been a non-white supremacist, non-slave owning Christianity, a version of Christianity that more aligns with the Christianity of Christ than the Christianity of this land. So we're gonna do it. All right. So look. It's 5:32. I'm about an hour and 30 minutes in. Questions. What questions do you have? You should be subscribing to the podcast. I need you to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't yet. We have more conversations. What questions do you have? I will take a few questions. Take a few questions. Thank you, Dwayne Brown. Appreciate it. Hey, listen. If you send a super chat, your question will be highlighted, which means it's probably going to be recognized before all of the other questions. So it will be great if you attach a super chat to your questions. But I'm answering questions, and so that I can see them, please put like question before your question, question semicolon before your question. All right. Will you address the rapture thing? No, man. Damon did a wonderful job addressing the rapture. So I'm not going to talk about the rapture thing here, but Damon did an excellent job. If you want a thorough discussion about the rapture, Damon. When you say watershed moment, what does that exactly mean? So let me bring it up for you. I want you to hear the definition yourself. So watershed. Here's the definition of watershed: an event or period marking a turning point in a course of action or state of affairs. All right. So a watershed is a moment, an event, a period, something that happens that's so monumental, a paradigm shift occurs, or something is brought to light, something is clarified. It's a moment that is of such magnitude that it cannot be missed, and it comes with a lot of implications and a lot of lessons. Okay, let's see. Oh, here's a great question. Pastor, are your books in bookstores yet? So you can get my books on Amazon. I have one book that's coming out on the 30th, Jamal's Journey to Jubilee. As a matter of fact, let me show you that. This is my book that's coming out on the 30th. Y'all know this time I did it for the kids. Jamal's Journey to Jubilee for 8 to 12-year-olds. Phenomenal book. This one comes out on the 30th. You'll be able to get this, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. My other books, Black Church Empowered, as well as Risks We Must Take. Those are both available on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, things of that nature. You can also find them at third-party booksellers as well. But yes, this book that's coming out on the 30th is a phenomenal book. about a little boy who doesn't like church, but he goes to church, and after one service in particular, he goes on a life-changing, clarifying journey, and it changes his life forever. So this book comes out on the 30th. It's for 8 to 12-year-olds, but adults will like it as well. All right, let's see. Thank you, Auntie. Very informative and thought-provoking. In all of your welcome. Well, listen, I'm still learning myself. Here's a question. Hold on, let me highlight it. Question from my brother, unknown disciple of Christ. What books would you suggest to start a study on the history of the Black church? Well, the two books I started out with, The Negro Church in America, E. Franklin Frazier, and The Black Church Since Frazier. These are two essays combined in one book. And The Black Church and African American Experience by Mumia and Lincoln and Mumia. So the Black Church and African American Experience. Hold on one second. All right, so here are the books right here. This was the very first book that I read. Two essays combined together. Very first book that I read on the history, the legacy of the Black church. And then I followed it up with this one. Now, this is a bit of a tome. This is a commitment to read this, but these two books, essential. This is essential reading. All right. Thank you for the question. All right, let's see. All right, let's see. Where. This is my mom number 2, y'all. She says at NBC. So I pastor a church called New Congregational Missionary Baptist Church. We can't wait. I have a supportive church, y'all. I have a church that loves me, y'all. And I'm so excited. We're doing a book signing here at the church after service on the 1st. I mean, not on the 1st, but first Sunday in October. Yep, Fred Price does have a whole series about racism in the American church. And that series was provoked by racism that he experienced from somebody that some people that he looked up to, Kenneth Hagin Jr. and Kenneth Hagin Sr. And so as a result of their racism, Fred Price does an entire series. And guess what? He got a lot of flack and blowback. I believe people even protested outside of Crenshaw Christian Center when he did that series. So, yep, you're absolutely right. Let's see. Yep. There are third-party Black-owned bookstores that carry it as well. Yep. Put the books back up. Hold on one second. Books back up? Yeah. So, Black Church and African American Experience, Lincoln and Mumia. And the other one, The Negro Church in America, and then by E. Franklin Frazier, Black Church Since Frazier. 2 essays by 2 sociologists combined into one. Deacon Marcus, you got me utilizing charitable in my regular vocabulary. How charitable should we be to folks who reveal who they are as it pertains to claiming Christ, but showing the opposite, especially pastors? We still want to be charitable and winsome. You know, listen, at the end of the day, I realize that my ministry, my platform is not for everybody. You know, some people will come here and be completely turned off to me and to my message and to what I'm saying. I get it. I'm not for everybody. And this platform isn't for everybody. I understand. However, I'm still trying to gain an audience. And so I try to be winsome. I try to be charitable because I realize that there are people listening that will give an ear to me and to this platform if I'm not unnecessarily vitriolic, if I'm not unnecessarily divisive. Now, truth divides by nature, and some of that you can't avoid. But I try to be charitable for the. I mean, listen, people are going to watch this. They are some may be members of Phillip Anthony Mitchell's church. I want them to think with me. I want them to think through this with me. Now, whether or not they agree, I don't know, but I want them to think through this with me, and I don't want them to have to step over the hurdle of tone and the hurdle of unnecessarily aggressive language to be able to hear the heart of what I'm saying. So yeah. Question. I have a friend who's a black pastor but is empathetic to Charlie Kirk. He saw that I highly disagree and wants to meet with me. How would you suggest I engage this convo? Listen, so here's what I would say to your friend. I would say, number one, how you feel about Charlie Kirk and how I feel about Charlie Kirk shouldn't jeopardize our friendship. So that's number one. You're entitled to feel how you feel. As long as you recognize I'm entitled to feel how I feel, let's have a dialogue. Number two, here's what I would say as well. Okay. Get beyond the talking points. Make sure, and I'm saying don't allow him to stick with the talking points, and make sure that you don't go in there with only talking points. Get to the real heart of your frustration and of your disdain for a lot of what Charlie Kirk stood for. He's going to throw out, he may, I don't know, but he'll throw out, the talking points. Well, he wasn't talking about all black women. He was only talking about some black women. He was only talking about empathy in a certain sense. He was only referring to DEI, right? Those are talking points. Get to the heart of why it's problematic to refer to any human beings as mentally incapacitated. If they're not actually mentally capacitated, why is it problematic for somebody who claims and professes to believe that all people are created in the image of God to refer to other image bearers who aren't mentally incapacitated, who aren't intellectually inferior as such? Get to the heart of it, and then try to what I've discovered is that a whole lot of these black conservative types, they're ignorant. They don't know anything about the black church, anything about the history of the black church. They are ignorant. Use it as an opportunity to educate, just like I did here. Go back to the beginning. Hey, do you know why? Not only, do I feel this way, but the overwhelming majority of black people feel this way? Do you know about the legacy, the history of white supremacy in this country? Do you know how, black people stood against this and there were other black people that opposed and refused to support freedom struggles and freedom movements? Like, get deeper, get behind it. And then at the end of the day, pray and walk away as friends. All right, I see a super chat. I'm coming to it. Where's it at? I'm coming to the super chat next. Okay, here's a super chat. Okay, April Walker says, continue to stand bold for Christ. Looking forward to the next chat. Currently reading The Religion of Whiteness, How Racism, that book, The Religion of Whiteness, How Racism Distorts the Christian Faith. That book is extremely clarifying. Phenomenal book to help. And again, all synonymous. When I say white supremacist Christianity, segregationist Christianity, slave master Christianity, the Christianity of this land, the religion of whiteness, all synonymous terms. Okay. So thank you, Sister April. Thank you. All right. Two super chats, y'all. Two super chats. Let's see. Y'all know y'all can leave more super chats. I see my wifey on here. Hey, my brother. Pastor Veda is here. My brother from another mother. Follow Pastor Veda. At Is He a Real One Radio. Thank you, bro. Appreciate you, man. Thank you, man. Thank you. My wifey is on here as well, y'all. Look. Oh, hold on. That's not my wifey. That's my homegirl. Sister Melody's my homegirl, but this is wifey cheering me on, y'all. And y'all know husbands love to be affirmed by their wives, y'all. Thank you, baby. Even if it's a bad answer, I want to hear my wife say great answer. All right. All right. All right. Listen, I know there are a whole bunch of look, my brother Gutter and Saint. What's up, Doc? Salute to you, man. God bless you. Look, Doc, hit me up if you need to, Doc. Like, reach out to me, inbox me, let's exchange numbers because I know you're there. And I'd be interested to know how this conversation, how it hit you, how you're processing what I said. All right. So appreciate you, man. All right. All right. All right. All right. All right. My sister Melody said, "Oh, wow. I had a deep discussion with a friend just recently. He's a white Christian, but we have a good friendship. We didn't end up yelling at each other or anything, but we did disagree a little." Yep. Listen, look at this, y'all. Miss 4th of July says that she'll keep sharing my channel. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm hoping, listen, that we have a unique channel here, y'all. And I say we because this is our channel. And we have a unique channel where we discuss these issues head on. And we bring history to bear. We bring theology to bear. We bring sociology to bear. And we try to have thoughtful, substantive conversations. And again, the reason why it's unique is because as it pertains to the Black church space on YouTube, you have the ambulance chasers. So these are the people that, every Black pastor that falls, all of the Black church tea, like they get on there to report that. And it's, it's salacious, it's gossipy. That's what that is. So there's that as it pertains to the Black church space on YouTube. And then there are the bashers, the haters. All right, it looks like my Wi-Fi is starting to give out, but there's a lot of that. So you'll find that that's a dime a dozen. The gossip, the Black church gossip channels, and the Black church bashing channels. Whole lot of that. All right, we are different. We're unique because our stated goal is we want to see the flourishing and the endurance of the Black church. We want to see a healthy Black church. We discuss issues pertaining to the Black church. But we also critique the Black church. We don't sit and just fawn over the Black church. We talk about the blights and the issues, but we try to bring history to bear. We try to bring theology to bear. We try to be substantive. So thank you for sharing this channel. That is greatly appreciated. Oh, look at this. Look at this. We got another super chat, y'all. We got another super chat. Brother Dewan Threat says, "I appreciate you, brother. Encouraging word as I'm strongly against the..." Appreciate you. Oh, all right, y'all. All right, y'all. We've been on almost 2 hours. I had to. I absolutely had to. Definitely necessary. Rodney Houston says the elusive dream by Corey Edwards, while not Black church specific, it deals with challenges Black Christians face in interracial fellowships. Thank you for that suggestion. Thank you. It's necessary because what we're saying is not new. And I'm going to talk about that when I do my broadcast. On the Christianity of this land versus the Christianity of the Christ versus the Christianity of Christ and white supremacist Christianity. I'm gonna bring this up. I'm gonna talk about this, and we're gonna go deeper. All right, y'all. Appreciate your prayers. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Don't forget to subscribe. Just obey authority. That's what they want me to do, Doc. Good to see you. Good to see you, Bernard. Good to see you. All right, y'all. Pray for me. Again, I've been dealing with a migraine all day. Got in a car accident earlier today. I'm okay. The car is still drivable. But again, warfare comes along with this. Okay. Warfare comes along with this. And so we should expect it is going to happen. All right. Love y'all. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Appreciate y'all. I'll be back on later on this week. Love y'all. Peace out.